세계의 많은 나라 사람들은 어떻게 보면 민간인에 대한 피해, 비인도적인 상황 이런 것들에 대해서 일방적으로 이스라엘에 대해서 휴전, 중단, 작전을 중지하고 피해를 줄이자라는 쪽으로 이야기하는 것 같습니다. 이러한 국제사회의 요구에 대해서 대사님께서는 어떻게 생각을 하시는지요?
This is our situation. As we understand that, look, if we would agree to a ceasefire, Hamas would come out of the tunnels the next day with a big flag, start shooting rockets again, and despite all the damage, they'll say, we won, we survived. This will be a strategic defeat for Israel. And it will encourage Hezbollah to attack us, and it will tell the entire region Israel is incapable of defending itself. So this is the way we understand the situation, and because we understand it this way, we believe that defeating Hamas is a strategic, vital necessity of the Israeli state interest. So we will go forward, even though international society is against us, even though it's unpleasant in the United Nations. We'll do what's necessary in order to assure that we can live and provide security to our citizens. Obviously, everything has its limits, but we're not going to agree to a ceasefire at this point.
안녕하세요, 최준영입니다. 지구부선 연구소를 사랑해주신 여러분, 오늘은 좀 특별한 손님을 모셨습니다. 최근 어떻게 보면 지난 한 달 벌써 넘었죠. 6주 전에 이제 벌어진 이제 이스라엘, 가자, 그리고 이제 하마스 여러 등등에 관한 이야기들 여러분들 관심 많으셔서 저도 한 2번 정도 관련된 이야기를 다뤘습니다. 오늘은 이거와 관련돼서 어떻게 보면 당사자이기도 하고 제일 정확한 이야기를 들려주실 분을 모셔왔습니다. 아키바 토르 주한 이스라엘 대사님 이 자리에 나와주셨습니다. 안녕하세요.
안녕하십니까, Dr. Chen, Dr. Han. Thank you. It's a pleasure and an opportunity to appear on your program.
네, 감사합니다. 그리고 오늘 이 자리에는 여러분들이 질문하시고 싶은 사항들, 또 이제 제가 궁금한 것도 있지만 또 여러분들이 궁금하실 사항들이 또 있을 것 같습니다. 그래서 그것들을 위해서 어떻게 보면 독특한 한 분을 또 모셨습니다. 안녕하세요, 한지훈 선생님.
안녕하세요.
네, 한 선생님께서는 이제 해외 경험도 많으시고 그 다음에 또 어떻게 보면은 이 사안에 대해서 여러 가지로 또 나름대로 궁금하신 게 있어서 본인이 출연을 또 자청하셔서 제가 또 모셔서 나왔습니다. 사실 이 자리는 어떻게 보면은 이스라엘이 겪고 있는 여러 가지 일에 대해서 한번 정확하게 이야기를 하고 여러분들이 또 궁금해하실 사항들을 제가 대신 질문을 해서 서로 간의 이해를 좀 높이는 그런 자리로 한번 준비를 해봤습니다. 저는 좀 큰 이야기, 어떻게 보면은 이스라엘이 처한 전략적인 중동의 전반적인 상황들 이런 이야기를 좀 여쭤보고 싶고, 그다음에 우리 한 선생님께서는 어떻게 보면 보다 좀 공격적인,
네, 좀 더 일반 국민들,
예.
우리가 대한민국 일반 국민들의
예.
생각에 가까운.
예, 많은 분들이 궁금해하실 사항들을 우리 한지훈 선생님께서 대신 질문해 주신다. 이렇게 역할을 좀 나눠서 한번 진행을 해보도록 하겠습니다. 대사님, 사실 저는 대사님과 지난 9월달이었죠. 아마 9월달에 한번 뵙고 여러 가지 이야기들을 나눴습니다. 그때 이제 사실 경제, 이코노미라든지 그 다음에 천연가스, 그 다음에 이스라엘의 여러 첨단 기술 등등에 관한 이야기들을 쭉 나눠서 한번 지구본 연구소에 나와주셔서 그러한 이야기, 어려운 이야기, 좀 힘든 이야기 말고 딱딱한 이야기 말고 재밌고 즐겁고 미래지향적인 이야기를 나누자라고 말씀을 나눴는데, 이렇게 참 또 상황이 바뀌어서 불편하고 어려운 이야기를 하는 자리에 모시게 돼서 좀 안타깝고 송구스럽습니다.
Look, we have to talk about what's current and what is happening and what is real.
Yeah.
But don't worry, we'll get back soon to talking about the fundamentals of our relationship, of our high-tech cooperation. We'll get back to that sooner than I think the people realize.
네. 어떻게 보면 참 현재 여러 가지 어려운 일이 있지만 조만간 다시 또 그런 즐거운 이야기 하실 거다라고
예.
이제 말씀을 해주셨는데, 저도 빨리 그랬으면 좋겠습니다. 일단 오늘은 오셨으니까 조금 불편하더라도 현재 지금 진행되고 있는 여러 가지 사안들에 대해서 먼저 몇 가지 질문 좀 드려보도록 하겠습니다. 지난 10월 7일 날 이제 하마스가 이제 갑작스럽게 공격을 해서 1,000명 이상의 많은 이스라엘 시민들이 이제 참혹하게 살해되고 지금도 인질로 잡혀 있는 것으로 알고 있습니다. 어떻게 보면 이스라엘로서는 그동안에 한 번도 겪어보지 못한 큰 충격을 이제 받았던 것 같은데, 한 달이 지난 지금 상황에서 이스라엘 국민들은 어떤 마음이고 이스라엘은 지금 어떤 상황인지 좀 대사님께서 말씀해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
Yeah, we're now 6 weeks into the fighting, and I think that something else is happening. The Israeli society is sort of like a mixture between grief and determination. On the one hand, there's really very deep shock and grieving about so many people who were killed, so many people are in captivity. In such a small country, there's, very, very strong connectedness. Just yesterday, I read about one of the hostages who we actually know was killed. Her name is Vivian Silver. I know her, and I know her son. But at the same time, we've sort of exited. Before the war, there was a period of political instability and great argument in Israel about the judicial reform.
Yeah.
And this conflict, I think, reminded the Israeli society that what's really important, who we really are, the nature of how united we are. So in that sense, even though there's a lot of grief, I think that morale is still high.
야, 어떻게 보면 참 참혹한 시기를 겪었고 그것이 아직 끝나지 이제 않은 상황에 대해서 참 여러 가지로 마음이 복잡하고 사실 그 전에 여러 가지 문제들 어떻게 보면 이스라엘 건국 이래 가장 큰 타격을 이제 입은 상황이다 생각이 드는데 현재 인질은 몇 분이나 지금 아직까지 지금 풀려나지 못하고 있는 건가요?
The number right now, it's the exact number is not even 100% clear because we've never received a list from Hamas and the Red Cross has not seen the hostages. But the estimation is 239.
239.
Of the 239, the great majority of are Israelis and the great majority are civilians. But there's also about 65 agricultural workers who are not Israelis.
Agricultural.
Yeah, like 55 people are from Thailand.
Thailand.
There's also a number from the Philippines. They were working in southern Israel, and they were taken hostage.
아, 그러니까 이제 이스라엘의 농업 노동자로 참여했던 분들, 어떻게 보면 동남아 전혀 관계없는 이제 필리핀이나 이제 태국에서 오신 분들도 지금 잡혀서 이제 어떻게 보면 생사를 알 수 없는 이제 그런 상황에 이제 놓여 있는데 참. 마음이 참 아프다라는 말씀 먼저 드리고 싶고요. 근데 이제 여러분들께서 궁금하신 사항들 몇 가지 위주로 제가 진행을 이제 해보도록 하겠습니다. 사실 많은 분들이 궁금해하시는 게 이제 이스라엘하고 하마스하고는 사이가 되게 좋지 않고 어떻게 보면 하마스가 이스라엘을 계속 공격을 이제 많이 해오고 있었는데 이런 하마스 같은 집단을 왜 이스라엘이 그동안에 가만히 놔두고 있었나에 대해서 대한민국 국민들은 상당히 궁금해하고 있습니다. 어떻게 보면 복잡하다면 상당히 복잡한 하마스와 이스라엘의 관계에 대해서 좀 설명을 해주시면 이 사태를 한국 국민들이 이해하는 데 좀 도움이 될 것 같습니다.
It's actually a political question in Israel because people are also angry at the government. The first job of government is to defend the people. But if we'll look at it, the reason is more or less the following. Hamas took power in Gaza in 2007.
2007.
Before that, they had won parliamentary elections to the Palestinian Authority in 2006. So in a sense, even though Hamas is, dictatorial and did not, hold any elections since 2006, since they've taken control, nevertheless, they are running Gaza. And you can see the great difficulty and the great destruction which is caused by the attempt to end this organization, which we understand we have to do now. But up till now, we made do. We said, okay, basically we have a mini war with Gaza every 2, 3, 4 years. They shoot rockets. Yeah. We retaliate against their rockets. They send suicide bombers. We kill some of their people who are sending them. Then the Egyptians come and mediate and we go back to normal. And we were able to live with this abnormal situation, just like Korea lives with very abnormal situation.
Yeah.
But now we understand that we were wrong, that the concept about Hamas was incorrect. We had thought that it was an organization a little bit like the Iranian government, which is bitter enemy of Israel, cruel, but rational, a rational actor. And here we see that Hamas is really not a rational actor. And also the level of violence and brutality which they're willing to use, they're more similar to an ISIS-type organization. But I think this was part of our conceptual error. We misunderstood the nature of our enemy. Maybe our enemy changed. Maybe Hamas morphed over the years and became something different than we didn't realize it.
어떻게 보면 이제 우리 입장에서 봤을 때는 상당히 이제 이해하기 어려운 집단이지만 다른 한편으로 보면 이제 2007년 이후로 장기적으로 이제 가자라는 지역을 현실적으로 통치하고 있는 집단이다. 그렇기 때문에 참 여러 가지 관계를 어떻게 설정할 것인지에 대해서는 상당히 어려운 것 같은데 사실 뭐 제가 이 방송에서 여러 번 말씀드렸지만 이제 히즈볼라라든지 상당히 이제 한국 분들로서는 이해하기 어려운 이제 그런 사항들이 되게 이제 많은 것 같습니다. 한국 사람들은 주로 국가를 기본으로 하는 사고방식이 굳기 때문에 국가 이외의 플레이어들에 대해서는 사실 잘 모르거든요.
I think this is a little one of the differences between the Korean and the Israeli situation. You also have very complex political environment. And I've been learning Korea now for a couple years, and the equations with China, DPRK, Japan, surrounding areas, Russia, it's very complicated as well. But one of the things which marks the Middle East and a little bit different is the issue of failed states. And we can say about DPRK many things, but we can't say that it's a failed state. It's operating. It's able to build nuclear weapons. But Lebanon, for example, is a state which is extremely weak.
Yeah.
And in which Hezbollah, the Shiite militia, is larger, stronger, more energetic than the Lebanese army. And regarding the Palestinian national movement, it's a divided movement. On the one hand, we have Fatah, which made peace with us. On the other hand, we have Hamas, which is sort of like the Palestinian Muslim Brotherhood. Or now it appears to be something even far worse. So we're dealing with the Palestinian people who are divided internally through two different leadership principles, and is indeed very complex.
그러면 제가 한 가지 질문을 드리고 싶은데 교수님의 말씀은 그러니까 우리나라는 중국, 북한 뭐 이렇게 나눠져 있는 국가 대 국가도 대립을 하고 있는데 거기는 굉장히 다양한 민족, 이를테면 뭐 수니파 이슬람, 다음에 시아파 이슬람, 그리고 팔레스타인 해방운동 쪽에서도 뭐 피에로가 따로 있고, 다음에 헤즈볼라가 따로 있고, 하마스가 따로 있고, 뭐 이런 식의 개념으로 접근한다는 그런 말씀이십니까?
Yeah, I agree with you, Dr. Han. It is it's very complex and we see all kinds of dynamics cutting across lines. For example, Hamas is Sunni Islamic fundamentalist.
Yeah.
In theory, such a movement should not be so closely aligned with Shia radicalism.
Right. Yeah.
And yet it works. We see that Iran, I'm not saying that Iran directed these attacks. We don't have any such evidence. But we do know that Iran is the source of the great majority of the of the Hamas military budget. It's in order to have 40,000 men under arms, you have to pay them salaries, and you have to smuggle in, you have to pay smugglers, and you have to bring a lot of weapons. 90% of that is paid by Iran. So in a sense, the hatred of Israel has enabled them to overcome the Shia-Sunni divide. So that's an issue. Then there is the other thing is that we don't, in the same way, like you may ask the question, what is the political opinion of the citizen of DPRK? We don't really know.
Yeah.
We don't really know,
Yeah.
But, and the same to a large extent is true within the Palestinian society. There are polling organizations. The situation is more open and it's possible to do research. But we don't actually know where the majority of the Palestinian people really stand. I think that there was great concern in Israel for a long time that if there would be free elections, that Hamas would win the elections, which that would basically be the end of the possibilities of peace, because if the elected government or the choice of the people is a government which tells me that we want to destroy you, it doesn't enable many political options. But I hope this is not the case.
Yeah.
I really hope it's not the case, and I have to believe, I want to believe that the Palestinians see what is the result of the Hamas leadership and what kind of catastrophe it's caused, and they will reject it entirely. I hope so. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. I think that we will go to a better place.
어떻게 보면 참 어려운 사항이고 이 결과의 끝이 무엇인지는 참 모르겠습니다만 사실 이제 본격적으로 좀 궁금한 사항들 몇 가지 더 질문을 이제 드려보고자 합니다. 현재 이제 가자지구에 이스라엘군이 이제 진입을 해서 본격적인 전투를 벌이고 이제 가자시티라는 지역을 포위를 해서 여러 가지 작전을 전개하시는 걸로 알고 있는데 사실 많이 궁금합니다. 이스라엘군이 가자지구에 진입을 해서 무엇을 이제 최종적으로 얻어내는 것이 지금 현재 벌어지고 있는 전투의 이제 목표일까? 과거에도 가자지구에 몇 번 진입을 했다가 결국 하마스를 뿌리 뽑지 못하고 지금의 사태까지 왔는데 이번에는 과거와 다르다라고 판단할 수 있을까라는 궁금증이 좀 있습니다.
So I'll explain the method and the aims. The aims are two. Aim number one is to destroy the military capacity of Hamas and to end their political ability as an organization within Gaza, which is difficult to do.
Yeah.
But the method has been the following. We believe today that the majority of Hamas armed forces, not all, but the majority is located in northern Gaza.
Gaza City.
There is their infrastructure. There is the majority of their fighters. And I don't know to say, but apparently very likely there also is the location of where the hostages are being held. So the method has been to bisect Gaza in half at the Gaza riverbed, which is a dry river which basically divides northern and southern Gaza.
Yeah.
We've asked the Gazan population, the civilian non-combatants, to move to the south, which is very difficult and very, very unpleasant. And more than 1 million people have gone. But it's necessary because if we are going to fight, we need the civilians to move out of the way, especially since Hamas's doctrine of war is to fight from within civilian institutions. And that's what we're doing. And I think that the IDF is prosecuting the war well with a lot of force, but very directed force. We are not targeting civilians. We're not targeting Palestinian children. I don't accept the numbers of the Gaza Health Ministry, but I do accept that there's very significant civilian casualties. But we're very focused. Even if we accept the numbers of the Hamas Health Ministry, which is talking about, I think, between 11 and 13,000, I don't think it's that high. But let's say it is. Let's say it is. Our estimation is that Hamas militants, Israel has killed about 5,000. So if that's true, then almost 50% of the people that Israel has struck are the combatants. I hate to say it, but that's a very high percentage in terms of what Western armies do. When the United States fought in Iraq, it was much, the level of civilian casualties was much, much higher. So I know that the pictures are harsh, but we're doing our best. The news today actually is that Israel is entering Shifa Hospital. We're sending elite units to make sure that we do not inadvertently shoot doctors and nurses and patients, but safeguard them as much as possible. But we have to penetrate beneath the hospital to get to the Hamas command bunkers. Otherwise, we can't defeat them. So I think we know what we're trying to do. You could say it's like a Vietnam-type situation, except it's a Vietnam-type situation which is right next to us, and it's not 10,000 kilometers away. And we know where the enemy is, and I think that we will prevail.
참 어떻게 보면 많은 어려움 있고 이것이 저는 그런 생각이 좀 듭니다. 어떻게 보면 지금 상황으로서는 이스라엘 입장에서 봤을 때는 하지 않으면 안 되는 일을 하는 건데 그 결과에서 발생하는 무수한 피해가 어떤 것인지도 잘 알지만 그걸 피해갈 수는 없는 좀 그러한 답답한 상황 속에서 진행이 되고 있다 이렇게 생각이 들고요. 대사님께서 말씀해 주신 것처럼 사실 이제 많은 이제 민간인들 피해들이 지금 발생을 하고 있고 여기에 따라서 이제 국제사회는 이제 뭐 당장 휴전을 해라라는 이제 이야기를 많이 하고 있습니다. 사실 저 입장에서 보면 목표가 달성되지 않았는데 지금 휴전한다는 것은 말이 이제 안 된다라고 생각들은 하지만 세계의 많은 나라 사람들은 이런 어떻게 보면 민간인에 대한 뭐 피해, 비인도적인 상황 이런 것들에 대해서 일방적으로 이스라엘에 대해서 뭔가 휴전, 중단, 그다음에 작전을 중지하고 피해를 줄이자라는 쪽으로 이야기하는 것 같습니다. 이러한 국제사회 요구에 대해서 대사님께서는 어떻게 생각을 하시는지요?
Your analysis of the political pressure and the, say, international anger or losing patience is accurate. It's true. And we're aware of it. We're aware that we don't have forever to defeat Hamas. For that reason, I think that the Israeli army will work quickly, even if we have to put our forces at danger in order to achieve the goals, because we understand that the time frame we have is not infinite. But having said that, look, Israel is not a superpower. We're not United States, and we can't do whatever we want. We have to pay attention to what those around us say, like Korea. But at the same time, when a country has certain issues which are superior issues of the national interest, there's a willingness to undergo tarnishing of the image, harm to how we look, and also there's a willingness to go forward despite heavy pressure. This is our situation. As we understand that, look, if we would agree to a ceasefire, Hamas would come out of the tunnels the next day with a big flag, start shooting rockets again, and despite all the damage, they'll say, we won, we survived. This will be a strategic defeat for Israel. And it will encourage Hezbollah to attack us, and it will tell the entire region Israel is incapable of defending itself. So this is the way we understand the situation. And because we understand it this way, we believe that defeating Hamas is a strategic, vital necessity of the Israeli state interest. So we will go forward, even though international society is against us, even though it's unpleasant in the United Nations. We'll do what's necessary in order to assure that we can live and provide security to our citizens. Obviously, everything has its limits, but we're not going to agree to a ceasefire at this point.
네, 어떻게 보면 참 이해도 가지만 이스라엘 입장에서 봤을 때는 이제 국가적인 어떻게 보면은 지금 상황에 대해서 반드시 해결해야 될 일들을 완수할 때까지는 어떤 국제사회의 어떤 이런 요구에 대해서 어쩔 수 없이 이제 국가적으로 챙겨야 될, 해야 될 목표를 달성하기 위해서 갈 수밖에 없다라는 게 또 이해도 가지만 또 한편으로 보면 참 여러 가지로 마음이 참 복잡해지는 그런 생각이 좀 듭니다. 선생님께서는 대사님께 뭐 여쭤볼 사항들 있으시면
좀 전에 대사님 말씀을 듣고 제가 질문하고 싶은 게 생겼는데요. 지금부터 제가 드리는 질문은 일단 대사님의 마음이 좀 불편하게 해드릴 수 있을 것 같아서 그거를 미리 좀 송구스럽게 생각하지만은
Don't worry about it. Truly, don't worry about it.
뭐 조금 다른 관점에서 접근하는 것도 균형된 시각을 유지하는데 도움이 될 것 같아서 말씀을 드립니다. 좀 전에 대사님께서 말씀하시기에 이번 전쟁의 두 가지 목표 중에서 첫 번째 목표가 하마스의 군사력을 무력화시킨다고 말씀하셨는데 그거는 군사적으로는 매우 타당한 매우 합리적인 목표로 보입니다. 하지만 그게 실제로 가능할까요? 왜냐하면은 하마스는 지금까지 조직 체계나 아니면 역사적으로 보거나 이런 비유가 적절할지 모르겠지만 그리스 로마 신화에 나오는 머리 9개 달린 괴물 히드라 같은 그런 느낌이 나서요. 그리고 만약에 목표를 이룬다면은 그 이후에 가자지구는 어떻게 되는 것인가요?
I'm weak on my Greek mythology, but I think Hydra was ultimately defeated, right?
Yeah.
But no, obviously we have to. We're thinking about what is the future of Gaza? Where will Gaza go to? And people don't realize it, but the experiment in Palestinian self-determination in Gaza is already 30 years old. Began in 1994. Israel signed Gaza-Jericho Agreement. Yasser Arafat ruled Gaza. And then in 2005, Israel removed all settlements, all military bases. Palestinian Authority was completely sovereign in Gaza, economic, political, security. And we saw it as a proto-state, the beginning of, what would ultimately, if it would go well, there would be further disengagements from the West Bank. The two regions would be linked. So also Ehud Barak offered Yasser Arafat 92% of the West Bank and all of Gaza for a state. So we've been trying to make peace for a very long time. The fact that we haven't succeeded, on the one hand, it's something that we have to learn from. But on the other hand, it doesn't mean that we have to give up. So it's clear Gaza will be ruled by Gazans, not by Israel. We won't reoccupy it. We won't build settlements. We won't attempt a military administration other than on a very temporary basis. It could be that we'll need to maintain some sort of security control there. That means the ability of the IDF to go in and be active. But essentially, we have to find a way to achieve Palestinian Gazan self-governance. How it will happen and what will be the interim stages, I don't know to say. I'm not sure that now is the most opportune moment to work on it because the Arab street is so angry at Israel that because of the pictures on TV and on Al Jazeera, that Arab governments are not willing to say that they're willing to run a trusteeship in Gaza. But if you ask me, that's what's really required. Trusteeship of Gaza by a coalition of Arab states and the preparation for the emergence of Palestinian self-governance there. I don't know what it will look like. I don't know if it will be the Palestinian Authority, which will be revitalized, and if it will be some other sort of Palestinian self-governance. I also don't know if this will ultimately lead to a Palestinian state or a Palestinian autonomy. The future for the region needs to be the maximum amount of Palestinian self-determination and self-rule, which Israel can live with and survive with.
Yeah.
That's what we have to find, the balance that is achievable in reality. And solutions are usually, in the real world, the solutions which are possible are better than the worse and imperfect.
그러니까 위협을 컨트롤할 수 있는 범위 내에서 가자지구는 팔레스타인 사람들이 통치하는 그런 말씀을 해주셨는데 제가 생각하기에도 그게 가장 바람직한 방향인 것 같고 그 말씀대로 이루어지기를 저도 기원합니다.
제가 궁금한 사항이 하나 있는데 그러면 이를테면 하마스가 상당 부분 무력화되고 약화되고 어떻게 보면은 이스라엘이 당초 아까 말씀하셨던 그 목표를 달성을 상당 부분 했다라고 그러면 현재 가자지구에 대해서 오랫동안 이루어졌던 봉쇄라든지 여러 가지 제약 조건들 이스라엘이 가하고 있는 이러한 것들은 과거와 똑같은 방식이 아닌 이제 새로운 방식으로 전환될 가능성도 있다. 이렇게 이제 봐야 되는 건가요? 즉 공은 저쪽이 문제의 해결의 키는 저쪽 가자지구에 있는 팔레스타인 사람들이 갖고 있는 거 아닌가라고 이제 보시는 건가요?
You're asking a very good question. Israel is not the colonial power. We're the competing nationality in the region. And in 1993, we accepted the principle that the Palestinians have national rights and that they're a national entity. And in theory, decisions that they make are their own decisions to make. At the same time, it hasn't been very happy since 1993. In other words, there was a lot of hope for a decade and then things pretty much went downhill. And I think I'm not saying that Israel didn't make mistakes, but I think primarily not through Israeli mistakes. We have to try to create the conditions that are most conducive for good Palestinian self-governance. But Israel has to be really careful about it because I think we've understood now for several decades we can't control the Palestinian society. The Palestinian society does not yet really accept us as an equal partner in the region. And I don't think that we should try to dictate them, who should be their leaders or what they should do. But at the same time, we have to try to create or enable or encourage conditions that will cause moderation to win. I think that will be our policy.
참 답이 없는 상황에 놓여 있는 갑갑함이 대사님께서 잘 말씀을 해주신 것 같습니다. 사실 그 다음 이야기를 하기에는 너무 좀 바쁘다라는 생각도 사실 듭니다. 지금 많은 사람들이 죽어나가고 있고 어떻게 보면은 당장의 문제에 지금 다들 바빠 있는 상황이다라고 저는 생각이 됩니다.
It's fine. We should talk about the future. I think that I became curious, when people started talking about what would things look like afterwards. I was wondering, when did the Allies begin thinking during the Second World War about what would be the post-war order in Germany and Japan? In 1942? I don't know. In 1943, I'm sure They were already thinking about it. So we always have to be forward thinking.
예, 그러면 조금 이제 큰 이야기를 한번 좀 해보려고 합니다. 어떻게 보면 최근에 이제 이 가자 지구 사태를 통해서 중동 전체 정세가 이제 급변하고 많은 분들이 우려하는 거는 이게 이제 하마스와 이스라엘, 가자지구를 중심으로 한 분쟁이 아니고 이제 히즈볼라라든지 시리아라든지 레바논이라든지 더 큰 지역으로 이제 확산되지 않을까라는 이제 우려가 있고 특히 이제 이란 같은 경우는 히즈볼라를 비롯한 프록시를 동원해서 이제 이스라엘에 대한 압박을 강화하지 않을까라는 우려도 이제 대두되고 있는데 그래서 많은 사람들이 이게 가자지구에서 끝날 것이냐 아니면 더 넓은 지역으로 이제 확산될 것이냐라는 우려가 있는데 대사님이 보시기에는 이러한 가능성에 대해서 어떻게 판단하고 계신지요?
I think this is one of the tragic elements of the crisis. It's right now it seems like Hezbollah and Iran are actually deterred. Nasrallah, the Hezbollah leader, he's given a number of fiery lectures, speeches, but he seems to be saying that Hezbollah is going to stay on the side. And that's very good news. Yeah. I think it's happening because he's seeing the amount of force that Israel is using in Gaza to defeat Hamas. And he understands that if he attacks us, southern Lebanon, he might be able to cause us a lot of damage, but southern Lebanon will undergo unbearable damage because Hezbollah is everywhere there. Yeah. And we would have to stop their rocket attacks right away. And there would be no other way to do it than through overwhelming force in southern Lebanon. So it seems like right now they're deterred. If it changes, it could be that Nasrallah will receive orders from Tehran. You must attack Israel tomorrow. You must do it. These are orders from Tehran. And if he does that, it'd be very unfortunate. But we're able to deal with it. Israel has divided its forces between north and south. Yeah. We have what is necessary on our northern border in order to fight Hezbollah at the same time as we're fighting Hamas. I hope it won't happen.
최 박사님의 질문에 이어서 하는 질문인데요. 아마도 이번 전쟁을 바라보는 데서 가장 웃을 수 있는 사람은 이란이 아닐까 싶어요. 제 생각에는. 왜냐하면은 만약 전쟁을 성공한다고 하더라도 전쟁은 반드시 국력의 손실을 낳을 수밖에 없는 그런 부분이 있고 그렇다면은 이스라엘의 영향력이 줄어들수록 이란의 영향력이 커질 텐데 중동 지역에서 그렇기 때문에 이스라엘은 빨리 전쟁을 끝내는 게 무엇보다도 중요하다고 저는 그렇게 느껴지거든요. 이스라엘은 이 전쟁을 어떻게 끝낼 생각인지 전 그걸 알고 싶습니다.
So Dr. Han, I see it differently. I think Iran is very unhappy. Because what they're experiencing right now is one of their major proxies in the region. They have the Houthis, they have Hezbollah, they have Hamas in which they've invested. One of their proxies is being destroyed. Mm-hmm. And if you'll ask me, I would be surprised if in Tehran they're happy with how Hamas acted towards us because the level of atrocity and violence and death that they caused on October 7th, it was... I'm sure that in Tehran they knew that Israel will destroy Hamas. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that they're happy. And another reason that I don't think that they're happy is, look, the Iranians are smart people. And maybe they very much want to break the rapprochement between Israel or the rapprochement. It's not a rapprochement, it's a creating of new bridges between Israel and the Sunni moderate states. They've managed through this conflict to sort of like put a break on it, but I think they probably understand that it's temporary. Whereas this war has also highlighted for Saudi Arabia, UAE, the moderate states in North Africa, for Egypt. It's clear to them how nefarious and dangerous is the Iranian influence. And therefore, my prediction is that when things calm down, the Abraham Accords will reassert themselves. And the entire dynamic which led to the beginning of diplomatic feelers between Israel and Saudi Arabia, I think that will happen. So I don't think they're so happy in Tehran.
그래서 대사님께 그러면 대사님이 보시기에는 이번 이 참 참혹한 사태는 누구의 조직적인 계획, 뭐 이란이라든지 하는 큰 그림에 의한 것이 아니고 어떻게 보면 누구도 원하지 않는 하마스를 제외한 누구도 원하지 않던 우발적인 어떻게 보면 되게 자살적인 행동에 의해서 벌어진 시츄에이션이기 때문에 이 행동을 누구도 결과를 크게 키우고 싶지는 않다. 그래서 어떻게 보면은 주변에 이스라엘을 비롯한 많은 국가들이 빨리 이전의 모습으로 돌아가고 싶어 한다라고 말씀하시는 것 같은데 그렇게 이해도 될까요? 보면
I think the Arab states are, the peace partners of Israel: Jordan, Egypt, Morocco, Bahrain, also Sudan. I don't think that they're happy about this conflict at all, because look, any conflict which is creating a large amount of Palestinian civilian casualties, including children, as seen on TV, is enraging their public. Okay, and we're aware of this. We understand that. Those governments are attuned to this feeling, and these feelings of the public, which are very angry at Israel, might be against the national interests of those countries, but those governments have to be aware of it. They obviously want the situation to calm down. Sure, they do. We're aware of it, but we have a number of competing priorities, and one of them is that we have to prosecute this to the end. I think we will, and then things will recover.
방금 대사님께서 말씀하신 게 그 분쟁의 나비 효과라고 그냥 한마디로 정리할 수 있을 것 같은데요. 제 생각에는. 그렇다면은 올해 4월 5일 날 알-아크사를 기습적으로 경찰을 투입한다던가 아니면은 그 이전까지의 스탠스와는 조금 다르게 팔레스타인의 정착촌에서 발생하는 자잘한 문제 같은 것들도 그 이전에 비해서 훨씬 더 강경하게 대응하는 듯한 그런 느낌을 많이 받았습니다. 이러한 일들이 이번 사태에 대한 원인이라는 그런 주장들이 있는데요. 그 주장들에 대해서는 대사님께서는 어떻게 생각하시는지 대사님의 고견을 듣고 싶습니다.
So we have to be careful not to accept the Hamas propaganda.
It's not my opinion. It's not my opinion.
Look, I'm representative of the Israeli government and the Israeli society, and we're democratic, and we train our diplomats to tell the truth. Maybe not all the truth, because it's not always possible. But look, I don't accept that the Hamas attack was provoked. As a matter of fact, in other words, look, it's true. We have a government. The government of Israel has within it now. It's a coalition parliamentary system, and we have a number of parties that are quite right and have not been in government in the past. And we have ministers who say provocative things, but the government itself has safeguarded the Muslim access to Al-Aqsa and Haram al-Sharif. The Islamic holy sites are under the control of the Islamic Waqf, and there's Muslim prayer every Friday and also every day, but it's not true. If anything, we can't know exactly what motivated them, but let me tell you what the majority of the Israeli public thinks. So according to polling, more than 60% of the Israeli public believes that the level of rancor and argument within the Israeli society between right and left over judicial reform, not exactly right and left, the center was more against the reform, but the internal disunity within the political system and our own internal dysfunction, this is what encouraged Hamas. In other words, they looked at Israel and they misunderstood Israel. They saw the Israeli politics are broken, so they thought that Israel is weak and can't defend itself. This is what the majority of the Israeli public believes. And they believe that the mistake of Hamas is that they mistook situation of Israeli politics for situation of Israeli society and solidarity of the people. It's true that a news broadcaster, Ilana Dayan, she said on one of the interviews, she said that the Israeli politics are broken, but the Israeli people and the Israeli society are not broken. And I think that's very true.
Yeah.
I very much hope that I think that we've learned our lesson, and I hope that we'll repair our politics.
그 많은 국가들의 여론이 시간이 흐를수록 점점 반이스라엘 쪽으로 가고 있는 듯한 느낌이 드는데요. 이 사태의 원인은 분명 이스라엘이 먼저 기습을 당해 1,000명이 넘는 사상자가 발생했고 그런 피해 때문에 이번 사태가 발생한 것이 사실인데 왜 이런 반이스라엘 흐름이 생기는 것일까요? 그리고 유럽을 비롯한 세계 여러 지역에서 반유대주의 흐름이 노골적으로 지금 드러나고 있는데 여기에 대해서는 대사님은 어떻게 생각하십니까?
Look, I'm not I'm not a young diplomat. I've been a diplomat through many conflicts, and I've also served in Europe during that period. And it's not new. Whenever Israel's in conflict, at some point the public opinion is going against us, because if Israel's winning, then public opinion, some of the public opinion will be against us. But I think that, we have to make a division between noise and reality. I'm not denying that Israel is under international pressure and that governments are not pushing us in a certain direction. But if we look at the United States, and if we'll look also at the Republic of Korea, in my view, the great majority of the general public is supporting Israel. I think it's like this. I think so. Yeah. I think so. I might be wrong in the case of Korea, but I don't think I am. And I feel, also the Korean government is quite supportive at the end of the day. What I am concerned about really is I see a change in the dialogue on the left, in the progressive camp. Mm-hmm. And even though, they're not the most dominant thing in politics, but it makes me sad, because I view progressive politics. We don't have to agree with everything that progressives want, right? But it still represents an ideal society, maybe a messianic idea. And here I think that the dialogue on the left has become extreme, very, very extreme, in a way that I've never seen. In other words, we have a situation where on U.S. University campuses, you have significant amounts of students who are justifying the Hamas atrocities. They're actually justifying rape, torture, horrible execution of families. They're saying, well, the Israelis are colonialists. They're like white farmers in Rhodesia. This is what happens. And I think this is like a total moral obfuscation. It's historic nihilism. It's a complete lack of unwillingness to look at what led up to what, and that makes me very concerned. So that's something that bothers me. But look, Israel has never been greatly popular, and we managed to live through it.
어떻게 보면 이스라엘은 보통 일반적인 인식이 이스라엘은 강자고 항상 승리하는 세력인데 그만큼 미움을 많이 받는 것 같고, 팔레스타인이나 아랍이나 이쪽은 보면 패배자고 어떻게 보면 불쌍하고 동정해줘야 될 좀 그런 고정관념들이 되게 강한 것 같다라는 생각들이 듭니다. 어떻게 보면 대사님은 외교관으로서 그런 고정관념과 이제 맞서 싸우면서 이스라엘이라는 나라의 국익을 지키고 옹호해야 되는 입장인데, 여러 가지로 그런 고정관념을 부딪힐 때 겪는 제일 큰 어려움, 갈등 이런 것들은 혹시 없으신지요?
I do my best. We all, there are tragedies about human society. I served many years in the Israeli reserves in the Palestinian territories in the West Bank. And every time I finished my service, I would say, why can't we find a way to make peace? The situation is miserable. And then, I would come back from my reserve duty back to my job, and there would be a suicide bombing in Jerusalem. And I would say, wow, we don't have any choice. I really do think, I think that Israel has to do everything to try to live with our neighbors in a peaceful way. And we have to do our best to explain ourselves to the international society. But at the end of the day, I have to say, Israel's strength and success, it's rarely derived from international support. It's mostly from Israel's internal strength and internal unity. Of course, we need to be aligned with a great power. We need the United States by our side. But if the Israeli people are unified, if the Jewish people around the world are supporting us, we can overcome not every challenge, but almost every challenge. So I'm very concerned about international opinion, and that's why I'm here explaining to listeners the Israeli viewpoint.
네.
And we'll do the best we can.
그러한 목적을 위해서 정말 do your best, 최선을 다하기 위해서 이 자리까지 오신 거에 대해서 정말 다시 한번 감사드린다라는 말씀 참 드리고 싶고요. 우리 선생님 더 추가적으로
한 가지
궁금하신 게 많으신 것 같은데. 예.
한 가지 더 궁금한 게 있는데요. 팔레스타인 문제는 누구나 알고 있는 굉장히 어려운 문제잖아요. 해결하기 굉장히 어려운 문제인데 이 문제를 해결하기 위한 방법 중에 하나로 제시된 것 중에 하나가 오슬로 협정에서 처음 발의된 Two State Solution이 계속 이야기되는데 대사님께서 보시기에 이 해법이 과연 적합한 해법인지 대사님의 의견을 듣고 싶습니다.
So I put it like this: in a perfect laboratory situation, if the Palestinians and the Israelis if both of us were perfectly ideal, rational actors with moderate temperament, then the answer is clear. The Palestinian state will be established in all territories captured by Israel. In 1967, it would be very difficult for us because we're connected to those areas historically. And there'll be two states living side by side in perfect harmony, like the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. I'm trying to think of a situation here in East Asia, say like the Philippines and Korea, because I can't find anything adjacent that really works. But indeed, this was the concept more or less from 1993 until 2000, until the failure of Camp David and the outbreak of the Second Intifada. The majority of the Israeli public believed that the way to solve the conflict was the establishment of a Palestinian state next to Israel on almost all of the territories captured in 1967. The issue is that with the Second Intifada and then the takeover of Hamas of Gaza, since that period, the Israeli public there has not been a majority of the Israeli public that has believed that it's feasible. So I think that the model will be like we discussed, a maximal amount of Palestinian self-determination, which Israel can live with from a security standpoint. And I think it's imperfect. I don't know if it'll be a Palestinian state ultimately. The position of the Israeli government is not in that direction. The Israeli government believes much more in a strong Palestinian autonomy. But time will tell. And things can change and things can get better.
예, 이스라엘과 관련된 이야기, 역사를 쭉 보다 보면 항상 희망찬 순간 다음에 또 긴 역풍이 불어닥치는 것 같아요. 그러니까 옛날 캠프 데이비드 협정에 따라서 뭔가 평화가 찾아왔다 싶을 때 사다트 대통령이 또 맘살당하는 일이 벌어졌고, 그 다음에 오슬로 협정을 체결해서 정말 평화가 찾아왔다 싶은데 레빈 총리가 또 암살당하는 일이 벌어졌고, 그 다음에 이번엔 아브라함 협정이라든지 아니면 사우디와의 국교 정상화 등등에 따라서 이번엔 정말 다를 것 같다라 싶었는데 또 이번 사태가 이제 벌어진, 어떻게 보면 되게 숙명 같은 공간이다라는 생각이 드는데, 이번 일이 어떻게 보면 과거처럼 또 한 10여 년 이상 되는 뒤로 후퇴하는 그러한 상황일지, 아니면 이거는 상황 변화를 따른 어떻게 보면 우연찮은 요소고, 이스라엘이 추구하던 중동의 평화, 다른 국가와의 근처 국가들과의 어떤 협력, 이런 것들은 더 강화되는 추세로 큰 문제 없이 이행할 수 있을 것인지 어떻게 전망을 하시는가요?
This is why it's so good to serve in Korea. Korea and Israel are dissimilar, but also we have some very interesting parallels. I mean, consider the Korean situation. In the 1960s, Republic of Korea was poorer than DPRK.
Yeah.
And Korean governments did not believe that they could democratize because totalitarian system in the North was doing better. And look at the situation today. I think that when we look at the story of Israel, we have, low points and going back, but consider the situation. Jewish people managed to reestablish their sovereignty and statehood after 2,000 years. They managed to revive the Hebrew language. They managed to recover from the Shoah, in which all of European Jewry was wiped out. And we were also pretty poor in the 60s. Not as bad as Korea, but we were pretty poor. Now we have this high-tech economy and our GNP is higher than most European states. But we have challenges, but we'll overcome them. We'll overcome them, and the direction is correct. It's like, how did Martin Luther King say it? And President Obama loved it. Martin Luther King says the arc of history bends towards justice. That's the way he put it. In other words, it's not a perfect trajectory, but I think ultimately we're going the right way.
그러니까 뭐 결국 결국은 사실 사람들이 다 하는 이야기고 우리가 만들어 나가는 이제 그런 것이라 생각하는데 저는 어떻게 보면 대사님께 하나 좀 요청드리고 싶은 게 사실 요즘에 이 뉴스들 뭐 CNN, BBC 이런 뉴스들을 이제 보고 그다음에 뭐 알자지라도 보고 이 상황을 객관적으로 최근에 벌어지는 일들을 위해서 노력을 나름대로 하고 있습니다. 저는 뭐 채널을 운영해야 되니까. 그런데 정확한 사실을 참 알기가 어렵다. 그리고 다른 한편으로 보면 어떻게 보면은 하마스나 팔레스타인 쪽이 그런 쪽에 대해서도 매우 능숙하다라는 생각도 사실 듭니다. 한국 사람들이 이스라엘 정부 그리고 이스라엘의 어떤 객관적인 입장을 제일 확실하게 확인할 수 있는 매체 또는 뭐 사이트 이런 것들이 있다면 어떤 것들을 이용하면 저희가 이스라엘 입장은 정확히 이런 것이다라고 저희들이 직접적으로 확인을 할 수 있을까요?
Look, first of all, I believe in news media. I think that in democracies, people who want to know what's going on can manage to figure it out through the maze. Our problem on CNN and BBC, I don't even think it's a problem of the editorial position of the newsroom. I think it's the structure of events and how news is delivered. They broadcast all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so October 7th, they had pictures from the atrocities. And then for 6 weeks, they don't see the atrocities, they see bombing. During this time, we have the hostages underground. No one can film them. They're incommunicado. So the structure of the situation creates an imbalance. And they don't always correct it. But nevertheless, I think an intelligent consumer of all this news stream can figure it out. But look, I read the New York Times every day. And it's considered to be a liberal newspaper, and there are a lot of people in Israel who are angry at it. And I sometimes read a lot of articles there that I don't like. But by and large, I think they're doing a fair job. I think they describe this way and they describe that way. And I think that there's integrity in the newsroom. I feel the same thing about the Wall Street Journal, which is a little bit, more. I feel the same way about The Economist. So I think that all of it's true, these are English language journals. And of course, there's Sampro, which I recommend more than any other channel for trying to understand things.
Yeah, 감사합니다.
Sorry, I wanted to say one other thing.
Yeah.
I think that one of the I think the major problem is that news consumers today, they have an opportunity to silo. In other words, to listen to some sort of news media or direction or Instagram account that makes them feel good.
Yeah.
That means that the prejudice is to listen to what is confirming your prejudice, whether it be towards the right or towards the left, rather than to hear real news or real analysis which causes a cognitive dissonance. That's the problem. The siloing of information. And I think that humanity, we haven't figured out new media yet. But I think Sampro is the right direction.
감사합니다. 어떻게 보면 세계가 다 겪고 있는 문제다라는 생각도 잠시 들고요. 어떻게 보면 대사님께서 힘든 걸음 이제 해주셔서 지구본 연구소에서 여러 좋은 말씀해 주셨는데 이번 사태와 관련해서 대한민국 국민들에게 한번 또 대사님으로서 말씀해 주시고 싶은 사항들, 부탁드리고 싶은 사항들이 혹시 있을까요?
Yes. Look, what I wanted to say is the following. I wanted to say to the Korean public, trust your instincts. Have faith in Israel. Israel is a very decent country. And if Korea would, God forbid, heaven forbid, find itself in a situation like us, you would behave the same. And we are really, even though we're very angry, we're not acting. The Israeli army is very disciplined, and we're not behaving with revenge in our hearts. The battle orders we are fighting like a NATO army, like U.S. Army, like a Republic of Korea Army. Orders of engagement are correct, decent, and moral. I want to say that I really want to get back to the work of being ambassador in Korea, which is to move Israel's relations with Korea from good relations to intimate relations. And I think that will revive very quickly. We have to build the autonomous vehicle together based on Korean engineering, design, manufacture, and global marketing, and Israel disruptive innovation. If we do that, we will defeat together Japan, Germany, and the United States, all of them together. So that's what I wanted to say to the Korean public.
예, 감사합니다. 어떻게 보면 이스라엘과 대한민국 참 어떻게 보면 묘한 관계이기도 하고 특히 뭐 저처럼 기성세대 입장에서 봤을 때는 이스라엘이라는 나라에 대해서 참 여러모로 많이 배워왔는데 또 막상 이렇게 대사님 모시고 여러 가지 이야기를 나누는 게 약간은 초현실적으로 느껴지기도 한다라는 생각도 듭니다만 대사님 말씀대로 어떻게 보면 한국 그리고 이스라엘이 같이 협력을 하고 서로의 장점을 발휘해서 정말 긍정적인 그리고 좋은 세상을 만들어 나가는데 좀 기여를 할 수 있지 않을까 생각이 듭니다. 혹시나 다음번에 기회가 되면 정말 대사님과는 즐겁고 좋은 이야기를 더 많이 나누고 싶습니다.
First of all, thanks very much. 감사합니다. It's a great pleasure to be here. If you can manage it, if you can get the Iranian ambassador to come and appear together with me, let's have a conversation. That would be a huge hit. That would break the internet.
그럴 기회가 제가 지구본 연구소를 더 잘 운영하면 그럴 기회가 있을지도 모르겠습니다. 혹시 뭐 한 선생님 또 뭐
저는 그 대사님의 말씀에 지금 감명을 받은 게 평화를 향한 되게 확고한 의지를 강력하게 보여주시더라고요. 네네. 그리고 그 대사님의 긍정적인 에너지가 저한테 바로 전해져서 저한테 너무 감사했습니다.
네, 장시간에 걸쳐가지고 이스라엘 대사님께서 이두초항국까지 오셔서 여러 가지 상세한 말씀 많이 나누셨습니다. 어떻게 보면 상당히 좀 불편하고 어려운 질문도 많았을 텐데 잘 답변해 주시는 모습을 보면서 이것이 직업 외교관의 진정한 모습이구나라는 생각이 참 많이 들었습니다. 한편으로는 대사님과 생각도 좀 다른 것도 있고요. 어떻게 보면은 저랑 견해가 좀 다른 것도 있지만 그런 견해들이 다 서로 모여서 또 하나의 민주주의 사회를 만들고 새로운 또 국가 그리고 국가 간의 협력을 만들어가는 것이 아닐까 싶습니다. 여러분들께서도 보시면서 여러 가지 다른 생각 또 불만 많으실 거라 생각이 됩니다. 댓글에 남겨주시면 저도 참조해서 다음번에 더 좋은 방송이 될 수 있도록 그리고 더 풍성한 내용으로 구성할 수 있도록 노력해 보겠습니다. 지금까지 함께해 주신 대사님 대단히 감사하고요. 그다음에 우리 한지훈 선생님 수고 많으셨습니다.
감사합니다.
네, 다음번에는 다시 더 좋은 내용으로 여러분들 찾아뵙도록 하겠습니다. 지금까지 시청해 주신 여러분 대단히 감사합니다.
복잡하고 어렵게 느껴지는 재무제표와 용어들 친절한 투자 멘토 사경인 마스터가 매주 새로운 콘텐츠로 알기 쉽게 설명해드립니다. 재무제표 분석과 포트폴리오 구성
뭐 양대 재무제표라고 그러면 대차대조표랑 손익계산서가 있거든요.
매수 매도 방법
이때 사는 게 좋겠네 이렇게 사면 좋겠다 근데 이렇게 살려면 뭘 해야 되냐면요 나머지 3분의 1은 놔둬봅니다 어디까지 가는지
실전 투자 팁까지 알려드립니다. 오직 3프로 멤버십에서만 만나실 수 있습니다.